Hey guys, this is AI Gaming 1776. I'm playing Just Cause 3 with an R9 380 in full screen at 1080p at the lowest settings with VSync off. I am getting 70 to 90 frames per second for the most part. That does fluctuate, it does change around, but for the most part, 70 to 90 frames per second. Now, the image, as you can see, does not look that bad for being the lowest settings. I'm actually kind of impressed because I've played the game with Nvidia cards at the lowest settings and I don't think it looks as good. Now, I will say, I think there is an issue behind that, and I'll get to that later in the video. But this is not too bad for the lowest settings. And the frame rate, 70 to 90 frames per second. If you like high frame rates, then you're going to like 70 to 90. However, let's turn VSync on. And let's see what that does to the game. So here we are, 30 frames per second, a solid 30 frames per second, 28 now, but still 30 frames per second. So let me talk to you about this for a second, okay? I have used Nvidia graphics cards for almost a full year now. I started using them at some point, maybe around January 8th of 2015, if you want to get super specific, and it's January 1st of 2016 now. So almost a full year with Nvidia cards, and I used a lot of them. The GTX 745, the 750 Ti, the 980, the 970, the 980 Ti, the 960, 2GB 960, 4GB 960. Now, granted, this is an AMD video, but I'm mentioning the Nvidia cards for a reason. I decided that I wanted to start comparing the two cards for myself because a lot of people would watch a GTX 960 video on my channel and then they would ask me if they should get a 380. Problem is, I'd never used a 380. So I got one. Now I can use one and now I can talk about it. So here's the thing. Do you see how we're getting about 30 frames per second? That does not happen in Nvidia land. All right. Let's turn VSync back off. When I use my Nvidia cards, pretty much any of them, if I'm getting 90 frames per second with VSync off, then I can get 60 with it on. It's pretty much that simple. It almost never, and I say almost never, I mean, it's maybe it happens sometimes, but if it does, it's pretty rare. It almost never will go from 70, 90 frames per second without VSync all the way down to 30 with it. So, why is it doing that? This video is serving multiple purposes. First of all, I'm showing you what I'm experiencing with the 380. All right. I'm showing you exactly what it is I'm experiencing. By the way, the system is a pretty stout system for a 380 to be in. I'm using a 4790K at 4 gigahertz. I've not overclocked it for a lot of reasons. I'm using a 4790K. I'm using 16 gigs of, I think, like 1800 megahertz DDR3 RAM. From it's HyperX, Fury HyperX DDR3. I think it's 1800 gigabytes. I'm using an Asus Sabertooth Tough motherboard. And I'm using a 7200 RPM drive. Yeah, I know it's an HDD. But still, I'm using a 7200 RPM HDD in my Nvidia system too, and my Nvidia system screams. My Nvidia system actually has lesser hardware. When you look at a few key things. My Nvidia system has slower RAM. My Nvidia system has a slower processor. It's a 4790, but it's not a K, so my Nvidia system actually is at a disadvantage right there. It's at 3.6 instead of 4.0. The cooler on the CPU in the Nvidia system is it's a Dell cooler. Gets okay temperatures, nothing to brag about, but the cooler I have here is a huge Fantex cooler on this system that I'm playing on right now with my AMD cards. I have a completely separate system for AMD. Anyway, point being, we're getting sometimes in the 60s, but mainly 70s and 90s with VSync off. You turn VSync on, and it just goes to crap, goes to 30 FPS. With my GTX 960, my 4GB 960, I can have stuff turned up. Level of detail can be turned up, textures can be turned up, water can be turned up, obviously tessellation can be on. The settings are not, I have videos showing this, the settings are not this low. This is ridiculous. I'm at the lowest settings, and when I use VSync, I'm at 30 FPS. Now, I will say this. This is not the worst 30 FPS I've ever seen in my life. I could play at this, and if all I'd ever used was an R9 380, and I didn't know any better in the $200 price range for graphics cards, which by the way, I paid more than that. This is, I think, MSI's top of the line R9 380. So I paid, I don't even know off the top of my head, maybe $240 for this card. I'll have to double check. But let's call it the $200 range, because I know you can get 380s cheaper than what I got mine for. So hold on, let me get to a rooftop so I can talk without face planting. Anyway, this is fairly smooth gameplay. The frame rate just actually went up to almost 60. See, it's fluctuating pretty hard now. This is fairly smooth. For 30 FPS, it's not bad, but because I have used Nvidia, because I do know that a $200-ish graphics card, I paid $219 for my 4GB 960. It's a super clock from EVGA for what that's worth. I know that card can do 60 frames per second with settings turned up with VSync on. Now, I also noticed I bought an R9 390. That one is an Asus Strix R9 390. And I noticed in some games when I used VSync with that card, I would have weird discrepancies too. So I'm new to AMD, and the purpose of this video is to ask you guys if you've noticed VSync having such a huge hit on your frame rate, and also to basically document this to show you what my experience has been. I've never tried to act like a know-it-all on my videos. Like, guys, I'm not the world's biggest expert, okay? I'm just not. And honestly, even the experts aren't the world's biggest experts when you really think about it, because a lot of times they only use so many cards. And what I've noticed with graphics cards over the last year, I've used quite a few graphics cards just in the last year. Even when I use two different EVGA GTX 960s, I have two in the house right now. Even when I only use two, even when I use two of the same thing, basically Nvidia GTX 960s made by EVGA, there are differences. One of them, for whatever reason, has more gamma. It's brighter. If I don't remember that whenever I record a video and I post it online, the video is actually too bright. It's washed out and it looks bad. And I've had people comment on it in my videos, and I've actually posted 2 or 3 just in the last month or two where I forgot that, oh yeah, this is my EVGA GTX 960 that has brighter gamma for whatever reason out of the box, and I forget before I record the gameplay to go ahead and change that, to knock the gamma down a notch or two before I record the video. And they're supposed to be the same thing, basically. They're both EVGA, they're both GTX 960. I assume they both have the same PCB. Not the world's biggest expert on that either. But even then, there are differences in what I end up seeing on the screen. So, point being, even people who have used a ton of graphics cards still probably won't use everything on the market, and there can always be discrepancies. So maybe this is user error on my part. I'm not sure. I can actually get out of here and show you Crimson. So let's go do that. All right. I'll show you the driver that I have. Let me grab my mouse, because I do use a controller because I'm a gaming scrub. All right. So go over to gaming, go to global settings, and oh, wait a minute. No, hold on. We actually want to go back. Let's check. Is it system? Right. Okay, so we're using Radeon software version 15.12. Radeon software edition Crimson, graphics chipset R9 380 series, memory size 4 gigabytes, memory type GDDR5, CPU type i7 4790K at 4 gigahertz, system memory 16 gig, Windows 7 because I'm old school like that. Core clock 980. That sounds low. I'm going to have to double check, but I almost swear they advertised a higher speed than that when I bought the thing. But it could just be it's like 980 right now while we're doing this, and it would be a higher speed when I'm actually playing. I'll have to double check. Remember, I am new to AMD. I'm admitting that. I am new. So let's go back to gaming. So here's what I think might be a culprit here, to be honest with you, is right here. Anti-aliasing method adaptive multi-sampling. Now, granted, I've told anti-aliasing mode to use application setting, but I've played with this, and my image is different depending on what I use. When I use super sampling over here, it looks kind of like an Nvidia graphics card makes a game look. When this is clicked the multi-sampling, it is a much shinier and, dare I say, multi-sampled look. It just is. Now that's one of those things that's really hard to prove in a YouTube video. But that's what I've seen. I almost wish I would have had this. I had it on adaptive multi-sampling at the start of the video. I almost wish I had it on regular multi-sampling so I could show you the huge difference. So let's get out of here. Let's start the game back up. This game takes a horrendously long time to start up. All right, so as a lot of you may or may not know that. And I know a lot of people say, oh, well, Just Cause 3, it runs very badly. You're an idiot. I love that when I see in the comments. People are like, the game runs badly. People always want to blame the game, or they want to blame the developer, or they always want to blame somebody. And here's the thing. I can use a $219 GTX 960 from Nvidia EVGA Superclock, and sometimes it costs more than that. I got it for $219. The price fluctuates. But anyway, I can use that card and it plays this game at 60 frames per second and it looks really, really good. And I've got a video up showing that. So, yeah, this is going to take forever to load up. So you can blame the game, you can blame the card, you can blame anything you want to blame. But I know that a card in this performance range should do better with VSync on. You saw it was getting 90 frames per second, more than 90 frames in some spots when VSync was off. So why is VSync punching this thing in the gut so hard? That is my question. Now, it could be user error on my part. This is a computer that I've built. For all I know, I need to go in the BIOS and change something. If that's the case, let me know. I'm going to be honest with you. What I try to do, my philosophy, if it's even safe to say that I have such a thing, my philosophy has been to basically try to gauge a game's performance based on being vanilla, right? Like not having to do any I tweaks, not having to do any mods, not having to go in the BIOS and change anything. I just do it vanilla. So you get your driver, you get your graphics card, you get your game, and you play it. How does it all work out of the box? That is how I've judged things. Now, I do know that you can change things in your control panel. You can change things with I files. You can possibly change things in the BIOS. I'm kind of clutching for straws on that one because maybe there's something that I didn't configure properly. I mean, that's a possibility. Oh, look at that. We're at 60 FPS. And I do believe VSync is on. Yep, it's on. And we're back down to 30. So that was nice while it lasted. Oops. Let's try to get back up here. So yeah, this does not look bad. When you look at the fact that we're getting 29 frames per second and the settings are almost on the lowest settings, this is a pretty good image for that. And then that goes back to, I feel like the graphics card is always doing some kind of super sampling or some kind of multi-sampling, even when you're not wanting it to. You saw I had anti-aliasing set to controlled by application, okay? And let me make sure. I'm pretty sure I have AA off right now. Yeah, anti-aliasing is off. So there should be no AA at all. Well, here's the thing with that. By the way, I'll turn AA off in a game with this graphic. Yeah, I'll go in a game, I'll turn AA off with this graphics card or even with my R9 390. And here, let me see if this is going to be a good spot to show it. And it won't look like AA is off. Like the jaggies actually are not that bad. See what I mean? Like we're looking at these pillars right here. There's some jaggies, yes. There's some. And there's a little bit of shimmer. But considering that I have AA completely off, remember, I chose application control for anti-aliasing when we were in Crimson a minute ago. And then my application is told anti-aliasing to be off. But that doesn't look like anti-aliasing off. Matter of fact, when you play with an Nvidia card, GTX 960, I don't care if you play with the 980 Ti, it looks really bad with AA off. This looks pretty freaking good. 30 frames per second, lowest settings, AA off. This is a good image. All right, we're at 60 frames per second now, so I'm going to stand still to not ruin it. This is a really good image. And in my opinion, this does not look like AA is off. Now, I told Crimson to make it application controlled, and my application is telling AA to be off. This does not look like AA off. It just doesn't. Not to me. Now, again, that's going to be hard to show you in a YouTube video because first and foremost, I am looking at a screen in real life right now, and that is how I'm coming to this opinion. You are not sitting here, unless you're like an invisible creeper, you are not sitting here looking over my shoulder at this screen right now, so you're not seeing exactly what I'm seeing. But I'm telling you guys, this does not look like AA is off. So I am under the impression, and I know, listen, I've already talked to a few people in private about this, and I don't want to like share private conversations or disclose certain things. I've told them that I think that there's an issue with AA not turning off, and they've told me they believe me. They don't want to act like I'm lying about it, but at the same time, they kind of implied to me that it should be off. And if it's not off, then there's some kind of problem. Maybe I'm having a driver problem or a hardware problem or something else, right? Well, here's what I'm starting to think. Like, again, I've used 2 different graphics cards from 2 different brands, okay? I'm using, this is an MSI R9 380, and I've used an Asus Strix MSI R9, well, not MSI. I've used an Asus Strix R9 390, and both of them do this, where even when I turn AA off, it does not look like AA is off. Rico's character looks somewhat crappy when AA is off, and even like all that stuff in the background, like the mountains and the trees and all that, it all looks worse when AA is off. This is one of those games. Actually, the AA situation has been very frustrating when I use Nvidia with this game, because check it out. FXAA looks like crap on Nvidia. Off looks like crap. But when you play with the 960, I'm not trying to act like the 960 is a super card. All right, I like the 960. I do think it's a good card. But with the 960, SMAA and SMA underscore T2X, why it's named that, I have no idea. But anyway, I mean, why they chose that underscore business, but whatever. Wow, did we just go up to 60 by turning AA on? Okay, now we're back down to 30. Anyway, those hit the performance fairly decently on the 960 from time to time. And the game has performed inconsistently with my Nvidia cards, by the way. And I've said that many times. I've tweeted it. I've said it in my videos. I have YouTube videos dedicated to the very fact that the performance has been inconsistent with my Nvidia cards. So the purpose of this video is definitely not to say Nvidia is awesome, Nvidia is so great, but something is definitely going on. And I really think that, and I'm going to exit out of the game. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to say this again. I think, wait a minute, vertical sync off. Actually, let's turn vertical sync off. We'll keep SMA, I guess, ×1 on, even though it doesn't say ×1. Look at that. We're still getting in the 80s for the frame rate, and I have AA on right now. You know what? As a matter of fact, let me turn the settings up for you guys. Let me turn the settings up. Let's do max settings real quick. Let's not do max settings. Let's just turn some stuff up. Oh, by the way, just anisotropic filtering hit my frame rate earlier, I noticed, which I thought was really weird because anisotropic filtering on my Nvidia cards normally doesn't make that big of a difference. Although we're still around 80 frames per second, so it's not doing it now. Look at that. We have anisotropic filtering ×16 turned up, and we have SMAA on. Without VSync, look, we're over 100 frames per second. Granted, we're on rooftops. That's always going to give you a higher frame rate. Let's go down here. Still 80. Walking around still in the 80s right now. So it's VSync wrecking this. Why? I don't know. I'm new. Here, I'll just leave that as it is. I am legitimately new to AMD. Not an expert. But let's go ahead and turn all this stuff up. Actually, let's turn it on realistic levels. Let me show you about where I would have it with the 960. I don't really remember off the top of my head. I have to have all this stuff off with the 962, although I do keep depth of field on. I keep all that kind of stuff off. So here's some stuff turned up. This is in the ballpark of how I would set up a 960. It's in the ballpark. Maybe not exact. Wow. frame rate just went from 30 to 60 to just chugging everywhere. Here, let's stop for a minute and let it regain its composure. So we're above 60 frames per second, and now we have the settings turned up fairly decently. Although it is playing not smoothly at all. It's chugging and feels like crap. Feels a little bit better now. See, we're above 60 frames per second. With an Nvidia card, if you're getting above 60 frames per second, it usually will not go down to 30 or below. It can when you click on VSync, but it usually will not. So let me reiterate that and rephrase it a little bit. With my Nvidia cards, if I'm getting 90 frames per second like I am here, or 60 frames per second like I do on the street, or even in the 70s right now, it normally is not going to go down to, well, now it's at 60. Turn the camera, now it's at 30. All right, so it's normally not going to go down to 30 frames per second just because I enabled VSync. Now, one of the reasons I think it's doing that is I think the game, not the game, but I think the graphics card, the drivers, whatever you want to blame, something about AMD's platform is having super sampling on or multi-sampling on. Again, let me show you. No. Exit. There we go. Let's be smart. Let's be smarter than your computer. All right, so let's go back into here. I think there is an issue where, come on. Really? Probably because I didn't let the game fully close before I tried it. Really? Crimson just like completely left that little area. How can that even shut off? Isn't Crimson basically my control panel? All right, let's get the keyboard. No matches. You guys saw it earlier. In Crimson, this kind of gives you an idea of what a noob I am. I'm still like using search. Not finding it. All right. Still, and I'm not going to edit this video. You guys know I don't edit videos, so the show just will continue. All right, then. Why I'm not seeing Crimson, I don't know. There it is. Come on. Come on, buddy. Come on. Come to life. Anyway, something in Crimson always says super sampling or multi-sampling, and when I change it from the multi-sampling, it has multi-sampling, variable multi-sampling, and super sampling as my options. And when I change that from multi-sampling to super sampling, I see a difference in how the image looks. It's definitely a more shiny, more dare I say gel marker look on multi-sampling, and it looks closer to how things would look with Nvidia when I change it to super sampling. There is a difference, and it seems like I can't turn that off. And again, I've asked people how to do it, and they made it sound like it should be able to be defeated. It should be able to be turned off or something. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. So let me see if Crimson's really going to be gone from here. Normally, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I start my computer up. Crimson's right there. It's not there now, obviously. And then I just searched for it and didn't come across it. So there's the AMD Gaming Involved app, but I do believe that is a separate app. Anyway, that's where I'm at. VSync is wrecking the performance. I know it's Just Cause 3, and you can blame that, but it's happened in other games too, and I will actually check more of those games, but it's Just Cause 3 is one of my favorite games, so of course I'm going to try to get that to work with these cards. I'm going to have to dig into some other games and see how those perform. To be honest with you, Nvidia versus AMD, I think it goes deeper than just frames per second. I do not think it's apples to apples. It's been pretty eye-opening. I think both platforms have their merits. I'm not trying to say that I want to pick one or the other right now. I've only been using AMD for about a week, so I'm not at all trying to pick a winner right now. But I would like to get to the bottom of this, not going to lie. I'm wondering why VSync is taking something from 60, 70, 90 frames per second all the way down to 30 and less, and at the lowest settings. That's part of what's so crazy. And what I'll do is I'll post a link showing the Just Cause 3 performance with my Nvidia 960. Now, the 2 GB 960 is pretty awful. And I even have a video that specifically says the 2 GB 960 sucks for Just Cause 3 because it does. I'm not trying to give Nvidia a pass, but of course, the whole reason I got AMD was so I could start comparing them to each other. I could have been lazy and just told everybody to go watch someone else's videos or just pick Nvidia or whatever, because that's what I'd been used to. But I'm trying to be thorough. So at great cost to myself, I built this system and trying to put it through its paces in all these games and figure it all out. So that's where I'm at. That's what the experience has been so far. I just wanted to document that I've been seeing weird things like that. VSync should not go down that far. And maybe it's just a handful of games, because there's only been 2 games where VSync has hit it that hard, to be honest with you. It's not an every game thing, but that's still pretty ridiculous. So let me know what you guys' experience has been, and keep in mind, Just Cause 3 has pretty bad reviews on Steam, and a lot of them are from AMD users saying the game runs like crap for them. And I almost wonder if it's because they're trying to play with VSync and they're playing below 30 FPS. And keep in mind, like, the 380 probably does way better in a lot of other games. So they're blaming the game, but why is VSync doing that? And then one thing I plan on doing is, once I'm going to restart my computer, I'm going to get Crimson working. Because I'm a noob. That's how I'm going to get Crimson to work. I'm going to restart the computer, and then, look, I'll bring the thing up again. Crimson will be there for me again because I'm a noob. I admit it. So I'm going to restart my computer. Crimson's going to come back up for me. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to set a frame rate cap, and I'm going to see if I get too much screen tearing. With Nvidia, I get a lot of screen tearing when I try these gimmicks, like setting a frame rate cap or whatever. But maybe AMD's a little better at that. So that might be a viable way to play the game. I'll find out. I'm addicted to Just Cause 3, so of course I'm going to sit here and make a half-hour video talking about how I had trouble getting it to perform on a graphics card. Because, talk about the things you know. Just Cause 3 is what I know. So thanks for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. I really, really, really appreciate you guys watching my channel. There's been a lot of growth in the last year. It's been ridiculous. Do you guys even know this channel has almost 1.3 million views? It'd be hard to guess. If you look at my videos, it's like 300 views here, 1,200 views there, 85 views over here, but it's added up. It's ridiculous. So I definitely appreciate you guys watching these videos, and I appreciate the support. And hopefully, somehow this video is going to help the gaming community somehow. And I'm being serious, because I think what we do these days is, like, we just put all the blame on Avalanche and Square Enix and Just Cause 3, the game itself, or whatever. We just blame something and move on, and I don't want to do that. I don't just want to say that Just Cause 3 is the boogeyman and Avalanche is the bad guy, and it's the developer's fault. The developer just didn't optimize the game right. Guys, there is a huge discrepancy in how this game plays on different graphics cards, and even the same ones. My 4 GB GTX 960, I made a video talking about, well, I think actually I didn't talk on that one. It didn't have commentary, but I had, like, talking about it in the description box. And with my 4 GB GTX 960, sometimes it keeps a perfect, rock solid 60 frames per second, rock solid with VSync on, looks beautiful. And then there's other times where the frame rate's fluctuating into the 40s, and I didn't do anything different. I didn't change the settings. I didn't do anything. I'm using the same graphics card, and I'm maybe even playing in the exact same area. Obviously, this is the kind of game that has a lot of emergent gameplay, so it's kind of hard to create the exact same scenario sometimes. But still, there's been discrepancies, and I get that. But why? And then on AMD, why is VSync just beating the hell out of the frame rate that hard? And then, I'm telling you, if you take my Nvidia cards, put a game on the lowest settings, and you get a 30 FPS frame rate, it wouldn't look as good as this did on the lowest settings at a 30 FPS frame rate. So there are some differences here, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not good enough, and I'm not happy enough to just say, the game's not optimized and blame Avalanche. I really want to know what the hell's going on. And that's why I made the video, to document it, to ask what's going on, and to compare notes with you guys. Because you guys in your comments for my 960 videos have told me, some of you have said the game runs great on your 960, and some of you have told me the game runs terribly on your 960. So hopefully this video honestly does help the community out somehow, and we can get to the bottom of it. So thanks for watching, guys. It's been AI Gaming 1776. I definitely love and appreciate your support. Thank you so much, and have yourselves an excellent day.